She also has a master's degree in translation from Johannes Gutenberg University, for which her area of specialization was technical translation. She has also received the Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, that is the DAD scholarship, for summer school in 2013. She is currently working as an in-house translator and proofreader at Ernst and Young Bischofs Prüfungsgesellschaft in Frankfurt am Main. In addition to that, she has also worked as a freelance translator, lexicographer, and a bilingual dictionary assistant. She can speak German, English, Hindi, Marathi, and also has elementary knowledge of Spanish. We are honored to have you here with us today, and we look forward to our conversation. So without any further ado, I now hand it over to Mohini. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isha. I'm also waiting for Anuja. So Anuja, like a very warm welcome also from my side. And I'm so happy and I'm so glad that you're with us today, and that we shared a very nice memories when we were together, we were batchmates, and then we are like talking in this scenario. So it's a very great honor to have you here with us and to have a very nice conversation with you for the next 45 to 50 minutes, what we have with us.
Yes.
So without taking much time, I'm starting with the questions. So my first question to you is, when and why did you start learning German, and how was your journey of learning the language itself? Because it's the first step. And why only German? Why not other languages?
Oh, well, looking back on it, it didn't seem like I really had a choice as to whether it was German or any other language. I started learning it when I was in school, so 8th standard. I always tell people I've been learning it for 10 years and they have big eyes when they say that. And well, the choice was between German and Sanskrit, and I chose German, and I've been very happy that I chose German. And I continued learning it after school, and then I decided to do my bachelor's in it. The first introduction to the language was maybe not the best in a crowded schoolroom full of other kids who were maybe not that interested. But I really liked learning it and at the Goethe Institute later. There were a lot of people who made the initial journey a lot of fun for me, made me interested in learning more.
Okay. And what were the difficulties? Like, I know, like learning a foreign language, it's not that easy every time, and not easy for everyone also. So what difficulties did you face in your initial phase of learning a new language?
I guess the difficulties were mainly there's a lot to remember in the initial phases, and if you don't work hard then you will have to catch up later, and it gets harder and harder as you go along. But I was very lucky to have good teachers. A lot of them took the time to go through it with me. I would say the problem, like the topic that I struggled with most was adjective endnomen, which seems like a very small problem to have right now, but then it was a big one.
Yes. And after your journey started, you also received a scholarship where you came to Germany in 2013. So it would be great if you could just put a light upon what was the scholarship about, and how did you receive it, and what was the journey in Germany that time? What was the course in Germany?
Entschuldigung, Mohini, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but can you both be a little louder, please?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, so I applied for the DAD summer school scholarship. There was an essay to write. The topic I thought was very interesting that year was Soziale Netzwerke. I still have the essay. I kept the copy of it, and now when I look back on it, I thought I could have done a better job of writing it, but I was still fairly new to German at that point. And I chose the University of Kassel. Actually, it wasn't the University of Kassel, but it was in the city of Kassel. And I did a summer school course there for C1. It was only half the level. It was my first time in Germany, and it was great. At first, obviously, I was a little homesick. It was maybe the first time I'd been away from home for so long. And I met a lot of people. a lot of people from different countries, and they were all there for the same reason I was. They were there to learn German, learn about Germany. We did a bit of traveling. We went to Frankfurt. They had a lot of activities planned for us through the school, so it was a lot of fun.
Right, right. And what was the course exactly about? What were the contents of the course? And how did it help you to improve your language?
The course was a fairly straightforward C1 course, but we also had additional courses about Landeskunde and history. Those were interesting. Those were shorter, but they were a bit different from what we usually get. And I had a teacher for the Landeskunde course. I think he was an older German man. He was, it was a small class size, so he was interested in learning where we all came from and what languages we spoke. And we learned a lot from him. And it was just fun. One funny incident I remember, he asked me what my mother tongue was. And I said, Marathi. It's a small language. You wouldn't have heard of it. He came back the next day with some printouts and saying, why did you say it was a small language? So many people speak it. He had like some statistics. I think Marathi is one of the top 20 spoken in the world. I didn't know that at that point. So.
Okay. Very interesting, very interesting. And after that, you came back to India, and I know that you went to JNU. So, so what was the yes? So, what was the reason behind you going to JNU after your bachelor's? And what course did you do there?
I did 1 year of the master's in translation at JNU. My original plan was to go to Germany, but I wasn't actually sure if I wanted to do translation or TAF. So when I applied to JNU, it was actually on a whim, but I got through and I went there for a year, and that was also a great decision. I learned a lot there. The faculty at JNU is great. I think some of them have retired by now, but they were great. It's different from what we had in the bachelor's or what we had then. The bachelor's has probably changed since then. We didn't have so much of a focus on translation at all. So it was actually JNU that introduced me to my first translation theories and my translation exercises. And I realized that this was a really fascinating field, and I'd like to continue with it.
Okay, so initially your plan was to come to Germany, and my question is, why exactly to Germersheim? Like, why exactly into this university for this particular course?
So when I was at JNU and I was doing the translation course, the master's there, I was talking to one of my professors, Dr. Chitra Harshavardhan. She's retired recently, but she taught at JNU for a long, long time. And I told her about my ambition, my plan to go to Germany, and she said, no, this is a great idea. You should definitely do it. And she had been in Germersheim for a training course or a conference, I think, many years ago. And she told me it's a small city, but the university is great. It's one of the best in the field. It is in Germany. It's a very small town. It's part of the University of Mainz, but it's not in Mainz. And in Germany, most people don't know it, but in the translation industry, it's fairly well known.
Very true, very true. And then how was your admission process? How difficult was it? What were the challenges when you decided to come to Germany? Like before your arrival in Germany, I would say.
Yes, the admission process was quite involved. There's a lot of steps to it. And I applied to the University of Heidelberg and I applied to the University of Mainz in Germersheim. And both of them had slightly different steps to it, but it was, you had to send them your transcripts, a few other documents. And Germersheim had an extra step to it where they needed something called an Anerkennungsurkunde. You had to send them your documents in advance, and then they kind of certified them for you, and then you did the actual admission. So that was it.
Can you just explain what this Anerkennungsurkunde is? Because we have students who wish to come to Germany for their further studies, and maybe they are interested in translation, and you're working in this field for a longer time now. And it would be great if you could just elaborate on the process of the admission and also the steps, I would say.
Yes. So the Anerkennungsurkunde, as far as I know, that is only for Germersheim. Other universities don't seem to require it. What it was that they had to basically see if the qualifications in India, or rather non-EU countries, were equivalent to their qualifications. So they asked us to send our transcripts and I think a few other documents, maybe the 10th, 12th certificates, and I think my European Institute certificates as well, to prove that I had the necessary knowledge of German and of German history, culture, etc. So I sent that to, I think, the central admissions office at the University of Mainz. Then they looked through the documents and they sent me back a sort of certificate, the Anerkennungsurkunde, that says, okay, this is what it's equivalent to. These are the courses you can apply for. But it's more of a formality than anything. I was in constant contact with the office at Germersheim, and I told them, well, I've sent my documents off for the Anerkennungsurkunde, but it might take a while. So is there an extension for that? And they told me, it's okay, you can just submit the admission, and once you get the Anerkennungsurkunde, and if we give you the admission, you can submit it after you come here. So that's what I did. And the other application process was like actually to Germersheim, send them your documents. They asked for a Motivationsschreiben. And after that, they contacted me saying I had to do the Eignungsprüfung. From what I understood afterwards, like when I talked to my classmates there, not everybody had to do it, but a number of us who couldn't easily prove their language credentials had to do it. But it was a fairly short exam. It was 2 short texts, one from German into English and the other from English into German. And after that, we had a sort of oral interview where they gave me a few texts to choose from and told me to read one of them, and we do questions based on that. Both of the professors who interviewed me, I later had classes with them, so I got to know them a lot better. But at that point, it was a little scary.
Yeah. I think for most of us, it's the same case, that we have the interviews with the professors who we meet when we come here. And so yes, thank you for that. Let's come to an existential question, which most of the students have, is the financial side of it. So how did you manage it before coming to Germany and after coming to Germany, let's say?
What do you mean, how did I manage it before coming to Germany?
Before, I mean, did you take any loans? Did you self-finance it? And after coming to Germany, did you do any nebenjobs? Did you do any practica?
Right. So before coming to Germany, mostly self-financed, or rather parents financed. And the masters in Germany, I have a fairly accurate figure for it. There's no tuition fees unless you're in the state of Baden-Württemberg, which I wasn't, so I was lucky. And it was originally like self-financed, or rather, like I said, my parents financed it and I paid them back. And I did do an internship. I was lucky enough to get a paid internship. I know a number of students who also do nebenjobs during the semester, because paid internships aren't actually that easy to find, or rather the ones that pay quite well.
Yes, very true. Very true. So you arrived here in Germany, and how was your studium? How was your course in general? What were the contents of the course?
Oh yes, the studium, it was great. It was a lot to take in at first. The Regelstudienzeit, what they say, the normal master's should take you 2 years. It took me 3 years, which is, I've been told, not out of the ordinary. Moini knows. But yeah, it was a lot. And also the system is very different from what we have in Pune. Even it's different from JNU. But JNU is somewhere in between University of Pune and Germersheim, where we have a different system altogether. We had a lot of freedom. A lot of the students at Germersheim, we just had to fulfill these credits. There were modules. We had 4 main modules and 4 specialization modules, and we could choose any class that fit into those modules. So we had a lot of freedom in choosing our classes.
And what were the challenges during this 3 years where you were, completing all these modules? I won't say completing the course because it never ends, and like even 5 semesters, 10 semesters, 20 semesters are less to complete it because we have this freedom to complete the course. So my question is, what were the challenges to complete the modules that you had?
Right. Every professor has their own kind of working style, and it's a bit of a challenge to get used to the ones that you have, and you'll have different ones next semester. So there's that. Some of them were really good at communicating what they wanted from us, what they needed from us, but it is definitely an adjustment from universities in India to universities in Germany. There's a lot of self-study here. There's a lot of like techniques that German students from German schools probably take for granted, or the ones who did bachelor's in Germany, that we in India don't know. But like I said, the situation in India has changed since I graduated as well. So the current students might know better than me.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And what were the challenges in everyday life? Like you had been to Germany, let's say, but that was for a month.
Yeah.
Now you were here for a studium. So what were the challenges also in everyday life?
In everyday life, the first few months, I thought it was unbelievably cold. I arrived in October and I didn't really have a lot of winter clothing, but that's a thing that you get used to, and then you don't think it's very cold anymore. Other than that,
Yeah.
I had actually great roommates. I had two roommates who were one was from Italy, the other was from Kazakhstan, and they were very helpful as well. It was nice to be among people who were kind of in the same situation I was. I would say it's the biggest challenge was just creating a sense of discipline for myself, because I'm living away from home. I have to cook for myself, clean after myself, go to my lectures, complete all my assignments on time, and do some self study if I want to keep up. It's a lot of stress. It takes you a while to get used to.
Yeah, it takes it. Yeah, that's true. And let's come to your current work where you're working as a translator. And I would like to know, how is your work right now? What exactly are you doing? And what are the tasks which are under your responsibility?
Right. So I work as a translator at the Ernst & Young GmbH. It's an audit.
Before that, just sorry to interrupt you. How did you come to this job, first of all? And then
So
you can explain.
After 3 years of studying, I finally finished my thesis. And after I finished the thesis, I started applying for jobs. And after Germersheim, I was kind of open to whichever city, but I wanted to work as a translator. So I was applying to a number of jobs. I had a couple of interviews. This was my maybe second interview. And I saw the ad. I'd heard of the company. They're one of the big four audit firms.
Yes.
And I didn't know anybody who worked there at the time. And I thought they're never going to take me. They probably are looking for somebody who's more qualified than me. I had just finished my master's. I didn't have any experience, so to say. But I went to the interview. I met the team. I did a test translation for them. The team was really nice. We have a sort of, I also start on describing the team. We're like half Germans and half English speakers. The English speakers are Australian, New Zealand, South African, a few English people, one Indian person there, and the rest are German. So I met with my current boss and supervisor, and they were really friendly. It's a small team. We don't have much to do with the rest of the company. But like I said, I thought I would never get the job. I didn't think I was qualified enough, but I went for it, just took the chance. And apparently whatever they saw, they liked enough. And they also had a graduate of Germersheim working with them, and they've apparently had interns from Germersheim throughout the years. So they knew my university, they knew it was a good one. So, yeah, that.
Okay. And now about your tasks.
Yes, right. So we are a team of mostly translators with a few project managers thrown in there. I'm maybe the most junior member of the team, although I've been there now 2 years, but they've been doing it for a while. Most of my most of my day is translating reports, audit reports, my management reports. Sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
presentations for within the company. Very rarely it's more creative stuff that HR wants,
Mm-hmm.
brochures and all of that. But the bulk of our work, the bulk of my work is audit reports.
Mm-hmm. 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 And do you have
And
also something
occasionally
to
I
do?
also proofread.
Sorry, I did not hear you.
Yeah, no, occasionally I also proofread something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, your question?
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, my question was like, do you also have anything to do with dolmetschen, with interpretation? Because often we interchange these words saying interpretation and then translation. So what is, according to you, the difference between both of them? And do you have anything to do with dolmetschen right now in your current job?
In my current job, I don't have anything to do with Dolmetschen. There was maybe um, sometimes we get jobs that come to us, like people come asking us, can you do this, can you do that, and yet tell them no because we don't really have the skills for that. um, I have never I've done a little bit of interpretation and through my freelance work, as when I was a student and later as well,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not professionally trained for that. At Kamasan, there are two master's courses.
Mm-hmm.
One is translation, and the other is conference translation, conference interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
well, yes, I
Okay.
knew my roommate was in the conference interpretation course, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw what she went through. It's a lot of stress. Interpretation is a very stressful job, but it's also very rewarding because it's a lot of it's a very mobile job. Interpreters are usually called for throughout the country. You could be here one day and there the other. And it does call for a different set of skills from a translator. A translator
Mm-hmm.
has to be thorough. We have to be certain that what we're saying is right, and we do a lot of looking up stuff and creating term bases and terminology lists. And interpreters, they do all of that stuff beforehand. They create a terminology
Yeah.
bank, and they kind of memorize it beforehand because on the day of the job they don't have time to look up anything. It's a very fast,
To
very
look up.
rapid kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
takes a lot
Yeah.
of practice to get used to that as well.
Yeah, but those two are two different fields altogether then.
No, there are a lot of translators who are interpreters and interpreters who also do
Mm-hmm.
translators on the side. It is possible to do
Mm-hmm.
both, but I would say you definitely need to be trained in interpretation more than translation.
More than in translation. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And my next question is, you mentioned you're working in an international team. So you have like English speaking and also with Germans. So what are the intercultural aspects that come into play when you work in this kind of a team?
We've
Any
been working,
examples?
yeah, we've been working from home since about March 2020. We've been in the office a couple of times since then, but largely from home, and occasionally I talk with people and we have the weekly meeting. So the interaction has been less in the last 2 years, but I was there for 6 months before the whole pandemic started, and I found
Mm-hmm.
they get along fairly well, the two cultures, let's say. But they do have a few like tongue-in-cheek jokes about how the English people are about not confronting things directly and how Germans just like to say how it is. um,
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the time they manage to convey whatever they want, but there are still a few um as my German colleague says, yeah, die Anglos machen immer so. Um, they they prefer the Germans. They kind of, most of them prefer that you are more direct with them. Just tell them what's wrong right now instead of phrasing it in a different direction. And my boss, she's from New Zealand, so she's one of the English speakers. She's not so direct about things. But I found that both sides of the team, like both teams, let's say, uh, they're very good about giving feedback. So they have that in common.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very true.
In
So,
Shini,
yeah.
Anuja, is it possible for you to maybe use a mic or headphones? Deine Stimme ist sehr, sehr leise.
Okay, I'll try it with the mic.
Yeah.
Hang on.
You can
Just-
try it.
or headphones really, but I'll try. Just a minute. Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, feel better. Vielen Dank.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, where were we?
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the intercultural aspects, and if you have any concrete examples for that.
Right. I would say it's mostly about the one thing that really stood out to me is if there is something wrong, then my German colleagues are more likely to say, no, this is wrong, we need to change it. And the English colleagues are more likely to phrase it in, they'll either talk around it or they'll phrase it in a more a subtler manner.
Mhm.
Other than that, I don't think this is an intercultural thing with like nationalities so much as it's just a difference in how the people are. We have
Yeah.
two teams in Germany, two translator teams. One's based in Stuttgart and the other in Frankfurt, where I work.
Hmm.
And they're both led by women. My boss, as I said, is from New Zealand, and the one in Stuttgart, she's English, I think. And the Stuttgart team, I think they're both younger and they have a little more of the English speakers. They're a lot more involved with each other. They have a lot more like participation, which is good. Sounds good to some people, you know, when you're new in a city and you find friends from work, that's really good. But it's also not great if you don't want to hang out with the people from work.
True. Very nice. So I'll come to the last part of the interview. I have a few questions left. You have been learning German since many years now. You came to Germany, you got a scholarship, you have settled in a company, in a very famous company, which is also very famous here in Germany. And so my question would be at this point, what is your advice to the students who are currently learning German, who have started learning German, and with all the challenges that you have faced, what is your advice to them?
My advice to them would be that it depends really on where you want to work. The market in Germany it's quite open for somebody with English skills and very good German skills. There are a lot of jobs here. It's getting a little less and less as the industry changes, but even so, there's still a lot of jobs here. And I would say in the translation industry, the more languages you learn, the better equipped you are, the more in demand you are.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the work I do, for example, is just German into English. I'm trying to learn a little more Spanish so I can also work with that language. My current job doesn't require it, but there are a lot of jobs that require you to have 2 foreign languages and your native language. There are a lot of English speakers who claim they can be translators because they speak German, or the other way around, Germans who speak English who think they can be translators. As a translator, it's best if you have a professional degree, or either way, if you have experience. A degree or experience, it really shows that you can do the job well. It sets you apart from people. And there's also a lot of translation softwares that are getting used. I've used a couple of them. They seem pretty similar, and a lot of machine translation is getting used as well. My company has also started using some.
So if you get the chance, then you should familiarize yourself with both translation softwares and machine translation softwares.
That was my next question exactly. That has you mentioned right now influencing also the translation field in general. Are the jobs getting lesser, or how is it? What is the scope of translation in the coming years then, if it is influenced so much by artificial intelligence?
Right. So at the university, when I was just completing my degree, this question came up a lot, and our professors always said, no, there's no way that human translators are that bad or machine translators are that good. But I've used machine translation. I'd say it's getting better by the day. But that is changing the translation industry, but it's not making it disappear. It's more that the job is changing from being a translator to being a post editor, where you go through what the machine has taken out and you refine it, you enhance it. So that's a different set of skills. And from what I've heard from another batchmate of ours, also graduated from the University of Saarbrücken in Germany, and she graduated a year before me, Aishwarya. She told me that the translation course at the University of Saarbrücken has now been changed to a post-editing course. So the universities are also acknowledging this now.
Thank you so much for all your inputs, for all the insights, Anuja. I have a last question, which will take us to a very funny mode, I would say. I would like to mention your Lieblingswort, oder, or your Rede is, I don't know, you like it in German, and the meaning of it.
There are a lot sometimes, but I would say there's one that I like a lot. I like how it sounds, and I like what it means as well. Qual der Wahl. So it also applies to what I said about studying in Germany, where you have so many choices, you don't know which one to make. It's very difficult to make a decision. It's good to have that much freedom, but sometimes you wish you had a little less.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I can confirm that also through my experience. So yeah, it's Qual der Wahl. Thank you so much for that. So we have the room open for question and answers now. So I will request all the participants to maybe unmute themselves or also write in the chat if they have any questions for Anuja.
I request the participants to put their questions in the chat box because the unmute option has been disabled. Thank you.
For my master's course, they had their own entrance exam. I think I already had a C1 from the Goethe Institute at that point. Some universities here ask for C2, but it's rare. Generally, they're okay if you prove your German skills with a C1. There was some confusion about whether I had to prove my English skills as well, because we know in India that we have our education system is based in English, but people in Germany are a bit confused when they say you're from India and you speak English well. I didn't take an exam for that, but if you have the time and if you want to be on the safer side, you might want to take one of the common English exams just in case. Does that answer your question? Okay, sure.
Yes. Any other questions? I think this is the right time to ask the questions because we have an expert from the translation field with us. So yes, we have one question in the chat.
Yes. So like I said, the course did not have a tuition fee. We did have an administrative fee every semester. It was, I think, 120 euros per semester. I think at some other universities it's higher, but it also includes the semester ticket. We didn't have it included. We had to buy that separately. But I think it's like 200, 300 euros for most universities. Um, that's what the fees for the university were. I didn't really have to buy many books for that. We had a good library. If we needed a book that was like separate from what we were doing in class, our professors would tell us this book is in the library, go make a copy of it or something. Living costs were mainly the costs that we had. I have a fairly accurate figure for how much I spent all through the years, but that figure also includes like my flights to and to India. I would say the entire 3 years was 15 lakhs rupees. That's in rupees. But like I said, some of it includes costs that you might not have. I'd say Moini can probably correspond to this one, but I'd say maybe depending on your city, you'd spend 500 euros a month. I had in a small city, so I was spending less, lower rents, etc.
Yeah. Depends on the city which you stay, which you live and study. We also have a question with regard to JNU, Anuja, in the chat.
Yeah, I can see the next question as well. When I applied to JNU, when I applied to JNU, I had no experience in translation whatsoever. That was my first experience. When I was still in JNU, I started working a little bit on the side as a freelance translator, but that was like my first job as a translator. And the preparations to get to JNU. JNU has its own entrance exam. They had, I think it was mostly translation exercises that we did, maybe a few other general knowledge intelligence questions. I do not remember preparing very much for the exam. It is fairly easy to get through if you've been in the bachelor's. I had just gotten out of the bachelor's, so all the knowledge was fresh in my mind. Right. Till which level so when we talk about the Goethe Institute levels, I have a C1 from there. I had started the C2 course, as Moini knows, but I had to break it off because I went to JNU. And I'd say C1 is pretty good level because the rest of it is mostly using the language instead of learning it. You have to practice. The skills that a translator needs are much more than language skills. So C1 is probably good. Oh, thank you.
And we have
the questions are coming in.
Any suggestions to improve grammar, especially after B2?
Yes. It's been a while since I was at the B2 level. To improve grammar, I'd say in general, to improve a language, you have to speak it a lot more. And grammar probably also requires practicing it, but just practicing it in like an exercise book or your notebook is not going to be useful if you're not going to use the language. The process for masters can be done. I did the entire process for the masters by myself. I think Moini, you probably also did it by yourself, right? German universities are not standard. They all have their own rules, but I do not think that any Indian consultancy is really able to help you with that. Especially since if you have German language skills, you can contact the universities themselves
directly.
They're usually pretty willing and able to help you with your questions. Just find like the administrative office or find a professor that you think you would be interested. Okay, I want to do this course and this professor is teaching it. You can contact them with your questions and they'll help you. Consultancies are no more knowledgeable than you can be. Oh, okay. After B2 levels from Goethe Institute, which kind of job can you get? I think I started the C1 level almost immediately after the B2. There are a lot of companies in Pune, I think, who offer translator jobs / back office jobs after B2 level. It depends on what level of language skills they're looking for, but I think Volkswagen and Amazon do have some jobs for that.
Yes, we will be taking last 3 to 4 questions if they come. And we still have a question here. Are there any enough job opportunities in this field from Tanvi?
Right. So it kind of depends on what your language combination is and where you want to work. I would say that in Pune or in India in general, the market is kind of saturated. There are a lot of people who learn German, a lot of people who learn French, for example. That language market there are a lot of translators there. In Germany, there are obviously less people who are fluent in English to that extent that they can become translators. But in Germany, they also have more need of translators. Like I said, learning a third language would be very useful. It sets you apart from the competition, and learning different skills. For example, subtitling is very called for. One of my friends is a freelance translator, and he works as a subtitler. And he does a number of like Amazon and Netflix series. They're looking for that a lot.
Yep. Thank you for that input, Anuja. Very interesting, very important.
Okay, do you know of any universities in Germany which offer online courses in translation or post-editing? No, I'm sorry, I don't really know any universities who do online courses. I have not really seen the distance learning part in Germany so much, but this might have changed in the last 2 years. Maybe they've decided to create some online courses, but I don't know any. Yeah, so the name of my university is, as Moini mentioned or Isha mentioned at the start, was the Johannes Gutenberg University of Mainz. And the Department of Translation, where I did my master's, is located in a town called Germersheim, and many people in the translation industry just refer to it as Germersheim. I can probably, hang on, I can just write it here.
I wrote it already.
Okay, yeah. And
we can...
master's course in 3 years. Yes, the Regelstudienzeit is 2 years or 4 semesters. That's like the minimum you require to do that much. You can't really finish before that. And 3 years, or let's say 5 semesters or 6 semesters, is considered fairly standard around here. Like when I started my course and I had a session, like it was kind of a guidance session with my professor, where she advised me on the courses to pick for my first semester. You know, don't overload yourself the first semester, kind of thing. So she said, okay, the Regelstudienzeit is 4 semesters, but believe me, almost nobody gets it done in 4 semesters. It's a lot of courses, and then you have to write a thesis. So
yeah,
if you don't want to kill yourself, basically, don't try to do it in 4 semesters.
Very true. I agree on it completely.
Do I think machine translators might reduce
I think
chances?
I've already, yeah, but you can just talk about it if you would like to.
Okay, yeah, last question. I think it's going to reduce the number of translators that we require, since machine translation does, let's say, the bulk of the work, but you still need human translators to go through the work, make sure there are no mistakes, to improve on it. It's an industry in flux, but it's not going away. The translation industry is here to stay. It's just, it's going to look very different.
Okay, we have more questions in the chat. We can take the last two, one from Samruddhi and second from Dilip Kumar, and then we can stop with the questions.
Okay, sure. Can you specialize in translation of any specific kind of text? I didn't actually go into that. That's actually fairly important in translation. A lot of translators are specialized. I am currently working for an audit firm, so I specialize in financial reports. And my master's translation specialization was technical translation as opposed to literary or media translation. So there are a lot of specializations. There's legal text, medical text. I have a friend who was also in German, who is until now recently working with a hospital and interpreting for patients. So there's a lot of basically everything that you can think of that needs to be translated. It's a translation specialty.
Yes, thank you. And what were your challenges that you faced during your MA translation in JNU?
Right. So I didn't actually finish the MA translation in JNU. I did the first year of it, then I applied for Germany. The challenges were, again, it's a different way of working. It's a lot more Hausarbeiten and research your own topic and come up with this. And it was a lot of reading. It was, we went through basically a lot of translation theory in the first semester itself. And it was read this text and we're just going to discuss it in class. And it's a lot of heavy reading.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Anuja. It was really for all the inputs, for your time and everything. I request all the participants to switch on the camera so that we can take a screenshot, and then we can move to the next part of it.
Thanks a lot. It was great. I hope it helped. I was a bit all
definitely it helped. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Isha.
Yeah.
I think Anuja is still in the spotlight, I'm seeing.
Am I in the spotlight?
Anuja is in the spotlight.
I have.
And now you are in the spotlight.
I think it is on the speaker view.
Yeah.
From your side, yeah. Yeah. So this brings us to the end of our today's session, and I would like to propose the vote of thanks. First up, I would like to thank our guest, Ms. Anuja Phadke. Anuja, thank you so much for taking out time and coming here and sharing your experiences, your journey, and your insights with our students. It was really a pleasure having you with us today. So, vielen herzlichen Dank, Anuja. Next up, I would like to thank our platform providers and supporters, Dr. Swati Acharya ma'am from Department of Foreign Languages, SPPU, and Dr. Amruta Kulkarni ma'am from Department of German, Fergusson College, Pune. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being there and supporting us. Also, a big thank you to the creators of this series, Parag and Mohini. Mohini, thank you so much for conducting today's interview so well. And last but not the least, the audience, the students who joined today. Thank you so much for attending today's session and coming up with a set of amazing questions. So
yes,
all of you. And yes, it was good to be back after a short break, I would say. And we are hoping to continue with the series and bring in many more wonderful speakers. So until then, Team Zukunftsmusik signing off, and we will see you very soon. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you so much, Anisha, and thank you so much for all the support that Anisha, Isha, and all the supporters who are helping us to, take this ahead. Without this, it is not at all possible. And Amruta ma'am, Acharya ma'am, without your guidance, we cannot do any step of this. So thank you for being there. Thank you, Anisha. Thank you, Isha, and thank you for the audience that you have been there in such a large number. And we hope to continue this initiative, as Anisha mentioned, also in the coming months.
I only heard about this a few months ago, but you guys have done a phenomenal job. This is a great idea.
Thank you so much, Anuja. Okay, thank you, and bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Tschüss.